Today we have the MobileStudio Pro by Wacom. We have the 13 and 16 inch version here. I'm going to be comparing these not only to each other, but to Apple products as well. More importantly, I'm going to be sharing my real world experience using these. I owned the previous generation for over a year and these for a couple months. Most of the reviews I've seen on YouTube are tech reviewers that unbox it and then share their opinion on 5 minutes of use. And I don't believe that that's the kind of review people are looking for, because when you're spending over $3,000 on a computer, you want to know how it actually gets used in the real world and not just little tech details on paper. I just know that I've been using these for over a year and I absolutely freaking love these machines. They are the most portable computers for editing for photographers like myself. I'm going to ask Wacom for a coupon on these because they are slightly on the pricier side. They haven't answered me yet, but if they give me some kind of coupon, I'll share it in the comments or the description for you guys to use it. I had a MacBook Pro for 5 years before I jumped on one of these things. And the Apple products, they're good, they work, but they're limited, and I am a big fan of the Windows, and for the price, these come out to be around the same amount of money, especially if you're going to pair up a MacBook Pro with Intuos tablet. They come out to be pretty much the same price. I always wanted an editing machine which was all in one. I don't have to have separate tablets and computers. And with my MacBook Pro, I had to have that. I had my MacBook Pro, let's say I was flying. I had it sitting in the tray in front of me, and then I would have my Intuos tablet on my lap with a wire running to it. It wasn't so portable. This is called portable. Editing like this, that is called portable. You're looking for something portable, this is your ultimate machine. It's all in one. No wires, no dongles, nothing else. You're editing right there on the screen. This is beautiful. I use this all the time because it's so convenient to use. All my other computer setups that I've had in the past were never nearly as portable as this one. Now here's the thing to note. With the iPad Pro, which everyone says, well, iPad Pro is half the price, why not get an iPad Pro and I could edit on an iPad Pro? So the biggest issue with the iPad Pro, there's two big issues with it. One thing is the port-wise. This has 3 USB-C ports right over here. This has an SD card slot, headphone card slot. Just connectivity is a lot easier with these than an iPad Pro. The next big issue is file management is extremely poor on an iPad Pro. For this, since it's a fully functioning computer, I have my folders, drag and drop, bing bang boom. It's so easy for me to move files around with these computers. I'm just used to the Windows machine. When you have an iPad Pro, yes, it does have Photoshop. If you really need it just for Photoshop, maybe you'll get by with it. But as a fully functioning computer, these things you could put any program you want on them. It's like having a real computer. This is a real computer, and so I do not compare these to the iPad Pros. When it comes to the screen, is another thing versus the iPad Pro. These screens, if you've ever used any kind of Wacom tablet, you will understand the difference between the glossy iPad screens and these matte, really textured finish monitors and screens that Wacom makes. These screens, I absolutely love editing on it. It's so easy, it just flows, it just feels good. The matte finish helps without no reflections on your screen. The textures just feel good, like not exactly like paper, but you do feel some texture on the screen. So that's this versus the Apple products. I believe that these are far superior products for photographers like myself. The next thing we're going to do is compare these to each other, and why the heck do I have both of them, and they're such expensive computers. Having both of them is probably crazy. Yes, I am crazy. I had the 16-inch version for over a year, and then I got the 13-inch version because this, as an ultimate portable machine, you want it to be ultimately portable, but it is not. The 16-inch version does not fit into most everyday backpacks, and I have 35 backpacks. Yes, I know I'm crazy, and this only fits into my travel backpacks. So if I'm going to New York City on a photo shoot with my Vinta Type 2 bag or my everyday Peak Design bag, this does not fit into it. That's a big problem because this is a portable computer, and if it does not fit into my backpacks, then it's not a portable computer anymore. And that's why I got the 13-inch version. The 13-inch version is actually the same size as a MacBook Pro 15-inch version. So here's the thing that I do not like about the MobileStudio Pro. Why could they not make the screen go from corner to corner? Why such a thick bezel? It's 2020. Figure out how to make a thinner bezel on these things. I still do not have any idea why they couldn't do that, but they could have easily taken this crazy awesome piece of technology over here and just made that screen from corner to corner. Now that is not the biggest issue. I did get used to this 13-inch screen and it works just fine doing everything I needed to, but it would have been nicer to see this go from corner to corner. The next issue let's talk about is this camera over here. If you're trying to do any kind of webcamming with this computer, it is the most awkward place to put a webcam, off to the side where you are not looking, and that's a bad angle. It should be up over here. Every time I webcam with anyone, I hold the computer vertically, and now the camera is at the top and it's at a much more flattering angle, but now the computer is in an awkward orientation. You have to prop it up against something because the stand only works horizontally. So that is another issue I had with this. Now let's talk about what they upgraded in the Gen 2 versus the Gen 1. And like I said, these are physically the same exact looking computers. They did not physically change anything. But they did fix a lot of issues with the Gen 2. A lot of the negative comments that were coming out about the Gen 1 on these bad boys was fingerprint does not work. Look how quickly the fingerprint works now. Boom, I'm in. Right here is your circle for your thumb, for your fingerprint, and it works really well. The second issue they had was this portion of the screen and computer was heating up after you had minimal use with these computers. It was getting so hot that your hand would start sweating and it stuck to the screen and it was not usable. They fixed that issue with the Gen 2. These things still warm up, but not nearly as bad as it was. The next thing was the fan over here. They upgraded something and now the fan barely makes any noise and it still functions. Somehow they figured out how to cool down these computers and make less noise doing it. So props to them for doing that. The next thing that they added was that they include this stand for the Gen 2 models. So this stand used to have to pay $100 for it, and I don't think it's the best stand, but the quality is good, but functionality it drives me a little bit crazy clicking it in and out. I feel like they could have done a better job. Also, another thing to note is that the Cintiq computers have vessel mount over here. I believe they have vessel mount over here, so you could attach a monitor arm to it. I wish they would put it in these flagship, insanely expensive and nice computers, but they did not add that. So I had to make myself a wooden stand to do that. Not a biggest issue in the world. Charger is quite big for this. I wish they would eliminate one of these wires and somehow made this plug into the wall. But you deal with it. It's all good, you know, it does the job. The next thing we have to talk about is keyboards. When I'm editing on these machines, there's no way for me to edit without a keyboard because I am addicted to shortcuts in Photoshop. So I usually have to carry an external keyboard, maybe a little small one that folds I use. But another option is to get one of these Wacom remotes. I wish that these things worked wirelessly directly with the machines, but unfortunately you do have to have a USB dongle. It's a tiny one, and that means that you have to have USB-C to regular USB dongle as well. So if you do want to use these, you do have to have some external wires and adapters over there. But this thing is beautiful. Look at the amount of buttons it has. It just fits in your hand while I'm editing with one hand while pushing the buttons and doing things with my other hand. I love that. This thing is a beautiful little toy. It works on all of the Wacom products, not just with the MobileStudio Pros. Highly recommend that. The pen is the Pro Pen 2. Honestly, I don't use all the crazy amount of sensitivity layers that these things have, but I do like the pens that the Wacom has over anyone else's pens. I've tried the Surface Pro, I've tried the iPad, I've tried them all, and these pens work the best. Alright, let's talk about connectivity, because this is a big issue that no one talks about, and Wacom does not have this information anywhere on their website. So to connect these to your main computer, you have to have a USB Type-C cable. It comes with the cable, but you have to have it in your computer. So the latest MacBooks have it. However, if you're a Windows user like myself and your tower does not have a USB-C port, then you have to get this adapter over here. Now this is the problem. Wacom Link Plus is targeted towards and marketed towards the Cintiq computers, but it doesn't say anything about it working with the MobileStudio Pro. So they do have the Wacom Link without the Plus. They have that, and that works on the Gen 1 MobileStudio Pro computers. However, for the Gen 2 computers, that adapter no longer works. You do have to get the Wacom Link Plus. Let's talk about the screens on these bad boys. I love the matte finish on these. If it was glossy, it would have all kinds of crazy reflections on it. These computers cannot be used in direct sunlight. You will not see what's going on your monitor, but that's the case with any computer. If you've ever tried working with any computer in the sunlight, you can't see what you're doing. It's out of the question. You cannot sit outside on the beach and edit with these computers. That will not work. You cannot see what you're doing. The next thing is that they talk about the 13 not having as higher of a percentage with Adobe RGB versus the 16-inch version. I don't use Adobe RGB. To me, that's a gimmick. I use sRGB, and all those people who are going to comment right now, oh, this guy's not a professional, he uses sRGB. Listen up, boys. sRGB is the language that your cell phones, Instagram, Facebook, and all that uses. My fashion shoots, the majority of my clients are using the images for Instagram. I want my client's Instagram feed to look and on everyone's devices to look exactly like you do on my computer. So I edit in sRGB. My monitors are set to sRGB. Like that, everyone sees the same exact thing. Now, for a few times that I am working with a client that's going to do print or I'm doing print, I'll throw the monitors into Adobe RGB. I'll save my images in that format as well. And like that, they have the full gamut of colors and they're happy. However, between these two, I see no difference even in Adobe RGB. They look pretty much the same to me. Let's talk about this being 4K, and I think this one is 1440. Let me tell you something. These monitors of this size, 4K is also a gimmick, because if you put this into 4K, and you try to look at your icons in 4K, they are tiny little ants. You cannot use these monitors in 4K. You're gonna have to upscale all your icons and everything by 250%. Otherwise, you can't see what you're doing. So don't get deterred by this being 4K and this one not. This, as you can see, is just fine in 1440. Even in 1440, which I have both of these set to, I had to upscale all of the icons to, I think, 175%. So screen-wise, yes, this is a little bit smaller. You'll get used to that. They're pretty much both the same screens, and they're freaking amazing. I just love these MobileStudio Pros. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the battery on these. The battery is not amazing. And on paper, all the tech reviewers that are saying, oh, the battery sucks on these, 2-3 hours at full power and you're done, compared to 4 hours on a MacBook Pro. How often are you traveling for 4 hours and working on a computer consecutively? For me, maybe it's 3-4 times a year. Usually for me, it's just kind of like grab it out of my backpack, do a couple things on it, throw it back in. I'm usually near an outlet that I plug it into. Battery is not the biggest deal. And the reason why battery is not amazing on these things is because of the amount of power that these things are packing. These things are powerhouses. Their graphics card and their processors are really powerful, and it uses a lot of power, a lot of battery. And it's as simple as that. If you want a fully functioning computer where you could throw 10 images into Photoshop and edit them bang, 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 you need processing power, and you're going to have to give up a little bit of battery power for that, and I'm fine with that. The most I'll use these computers for is my 2-hour trip on the train from New York City to Connecticut, and I'm able to use it for 2 hours full, sitting there editing on it, and that's all I need really. And on the planes, these days you have outlets that you could plug it into. So battery power is not the biggest issue for me when it comes to these things. I feel like on paper those things sound really bad, but when it comes to real world use, these things are fine. They hold their battery power long enough for you to do what you got to do on them. For those of you who are thinking of buying this as a primary computer, you have to ask yourself this question first. If you are a nomad and you do not have an office or a house or apartment that you're usually in most of the time, then yes, you could use these as your primary computer since you're out and about at all times. However, if like me, you have an office, you just invest in a real computer at half the price of this and double as powerful, and you could still buy this to plug this into your main computer and use it to travel. However, I do not recommend having these as a primary computer if you have an office that you're going to be sitting at the same desk every day, because at the end of the day, these are portable computers. These are not made to be a powerhouse sitting on your desk to be used 24/7. They do still heat up slightly, and the processing power is never going to be nearly as good as your tower. So do not buy this as your primary computer if you have an office desk somewhere that you sit at every day. If you are someone like me who travels a lot and you do have an office, this is amazing because while I'm traveling, I unplug it, throw it in my backpack, run around doing my editing while I'm traveling. I come home, plug this into my computer, and boom, this is no longer a computer anymore. It's just a pen display which I could sit there editing on. Up until now, Wacom only had the Cintiq Companion. And the Cintiq Companion, while it was basically one of these bad boys, when you came home to plug it into your computer, it did not work like a Cintiq. It was only able to be used as a computer and not as a good old Cintiq where you're able to plug it into your main computer and use it as an external pen display editing device. So this is why I was so attracted to the MobileStudio Pros, because when I travel, I take these to go. When I'm at home, I plug them onto my main computer and sit at my main computer editing on this. All in all, I believe that these are the best portable computers currently available to us. If I could choose just two things I wanted them to upgrade, it would be to make the screen be as big as the computer itself, obviously besides the buttons over here on the side, but if it could just go from corner to corner and give us an extra 2 inches of display, I think that would be amazing. And the second thing would be that their charging, the chargers would just be made smaller somehow to make this just pack easier when you're on the go. If you're thinking about buying these computers, I highly suggest the 13-inch version versus the 16. The 16 is $1,000 more, and it also does not fit into most backpacks. The only thing it has over the 13-inch version is a bigger display, but you get used to these 13-inch displays very easily. I've been traveling for the past month with this, and it worked totally fine for me. I hope you found this helpful, and I know that I couldn't find this kind of info anywhere online, and if you have any questions and I missed anything, definitely leave a comment and I will try to answer them. Boom shakalaka! Till next time. Oh yeah, Daniel.